My name is Mark Omara. I'm a senior scientist with Environmental Defense Fund and at MethaneSAT. Thank you so much to the conference organizers for the opportunity to present recent advances in methane emissions quantification using MethaneSAT and MethaneAIR. MethaneSAT is a satellite instrument that was launched in March of 2024 and operated until June of 2025 when we lost communications with the satellite. The instrument was developed by Environmental Defense Fund through MethaneSAT LLC with support from a broad consortium of partners as listed on the slide. The mission's objective is to quantify methane emissions from global oil and gas operations and other key sectors, including agriculture, and to make this data publicly available in order to support methane mitigation efforts. MethaneSAT was designed to fill a critical data gap in the current satellite ecosystem. It's situated between global mappers such as Tropomi and Skiamaki and point source mappers such as GGSat, Prisma, and Nmap. As a wide area mapper, MethaneSAT could detect and quantify methane emissions at both regional scales as well as at facility scales. And by doing so, this enables robust sector-wide methane assessments. The mission workflow proceeds through 4 major steps. The first step is data collection by MethaneSAT or by MethaneAIR, which I will talk about briefly in a few seconds. And then secondly, the data is processed using a dedicated MethaneSAT data platform. And this includes the generation of level 3 data, which is methane concentrations, and level 4 data, which is methane emission fluxes. Third, the data is then made publicly available through a free web portal and through the Google Earth Engine platform. And then lastly is the application by end users, and this includes operators, regulators, researchers, non-governmental organizations, and the general public. Several mission features made MethaneSAT uniquely suitable for policy-relevant methane analytics, and this includes a 220-kilometer view path, as well as a native resolution of 130 meters by 400 meters, and a precision of 2 to 3 parts per billion aggregated at 2 kilometers by 2 kilometer grids. As I mentioned, we have a fully automated data processing pipeline that enables rapid delivery of level 3 and level 4 data, and this allows users to visualize methane emissions, to overlay oil and gas infrastructure, and to download the data sets for further analysis. You can view the data on the MethaneSAT portal as shown here on the left, portal.methanesat.org, or you can access the raw data, including the concentration data and the methane emissions flux data through the Google Earth Engine platform. Here is where we collected methane emissions data. These are some of the oil and gas methane targets distributed globally. MethaneSAT was designed to collect methane emissions data from regions that account for at least 80% of global oil and gas production. So all of the major oil and gas production regions are covered in this target deck. There are 3 main types of data products that we produce. One is the total regional methane emissions. So this allows us to quantify and track how much is being emitted and where. Second is the dispersed area emissions. These are small methane sources that are dispersed over wide areas. And then lastly, the high methane emitting point sources. These are facility level methane emissions that are usually above a detection threshold of 200 to 500 kilograms per hour for MethaneAIR and more than half a ton per hour for MethaneSAT. I'm going to just share briefly some some examples of level 3 methane concentration data. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes, Mark.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think I lost my screen. But if you can hear me, that's great. Um,
Yeah, we can also see the screen.
okay. Um, okay, can you tell me which screen you're seeing?
Is the previous one, if you go ahead,
Okay,
okay, now we have like the blank screen with MethaneSAT L3 data. You can go ahead.
okay.
Okay, now we see the MetaSat combines.
Thank you. So this is an example of the level 3 methane concentrations, and this is a map over the Permian Basin collected on September 11, 2024. And this illustrates the instrument's capability, which is near complete basin coverage with sufficient resolution to identify individual high emitting facilities. Second slide is another example of the Permian Basin, which was collected on September 28, 2024. And this shows strong, well-localized methane plumes that are tied to specific oil and gas sites. And this is another example of the South Caspian region of Turkmenistan. And what we see here is MethaneSAT captured clusters of very large methane venting sources that appear to be persistently emitting over several MethaneSAT acquisitions. Can I ask again what's being shown on the screen? I'm sorry, my screen just went black.
Uh, yes, we are now in Turkmenistan,
Okay, so that's the one that I just mentioned. And then the next screen.
Venezuela.
Venezuela. Venezuela is an interesting region because this region is often obscured by clouds. And in this case, the satellite detected numerous high emitting facilities. The blue markers that you see show previously reported point sources from the International Methane Emissions Observatory. This is a methane emissions alert response program that's developed by IMEO. And then the next screen, if somebody could let me know.
Yes, it's like related to Troponi, Appalachians. Yes,
In the Appalachian region, thank you.
yes.
So this highlights really the contrast between MethaneSAT and tropomi. So on the left of the image is a tropomi acquisition that occurred within the same hour that MethaneSAT collected observations. And you can see the contrast that MethaneSAT is able to see individual methane point sources that are then resolved, and you can see several point sources, whereas with tropomi, you see a single aggregated feature in the tropomi Corsa pixels. And this demonstrates the added value of high resolution mapping across large domains. Okay,
Now there is the analysis and insights,
okay, thank you.
and this one is rated to Texas, I think. Yeah, and New Mexico.
Yes. So what we're showing here is the MethaneSAT level 4 methane emission fluxes. Methane emission fluxes are crucially important because they tell us how much is being emitted and at what emission rate and where are those emissions located. And so in this example of the Permian, what we see is the Delaware and the Midland subbasins, and we estimated total methane emissions of 490 tons per hour. And this corresponds to a methane intensity of 2.8% relative to gas production, or 0.17 kilograms per gigajoules of total energy produced.
Yeah, comparing methane emissions between in Texas and New Mexico.
in Texas and New Mexico. And this again shows some of the application of this data because different jurisdictions might have different regulations to mitigate methane emissions. And using MethaneSAT data, we were able to show that the methane intensity in New Mexico is quite low, about a factor of 2 lower than the methane intensity in Texas. And we believe this coincides with regulations that are available on the books in New Mexico that are designed to control methane emissions from oil and gas operations.
This one is independent assessment. Mark, only to clear, we are running out of the time,
Yeah,
so if you
yeah.
can conclude in
So I
brief.
think I can conclude here, and I apologize because I do
Thank you
not
so much.
have,
Don't worry.
yeah, I do not
Thank
have
you.
I can't, my screen just went black. But the point that I would like to make, maybe the last point, and I will conclude my presentation here, is that the ability of MethaneSAT and MethaneAIR, which I don't have time to go into, allow us to be able to obtain very detailed, high resolution methane emissions quantification. And this allows us to quantify how much methane is being emitted and where those emissions are being emitted. And if we have collections over multiple times, we're able to assess the trend in methane emissions. And this is crucial because there are different uh, government agencies and regulatory agencies that have methane mitigation targets. And by being able to quantify where methane emissions are emitted and how those emissions are changing over time, we can evaluate and track the progress in methane mitigation. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to take questions and apologies again for the technical difficulties.